Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Doubling Your Business in 1 Year, presented by Shay. We are recording today's webinar, and after the webinar is over, I will email you on how to access the recording. A copy of the slides can be found down in the left-hand corner of the screen, and you can put your questions in the chat box on the right side. If you have the CRS designation already and you're wondering how do you receive credit for the new designation maintenance requirement, at the end of the webinar, I will post a link for the evaluation. The final question will tell you to put in your full name in the name field to receive credit for the webinar. That's all you need to do, but just please make sure to put in your first and your last name both. And I'm very excited about today's webinar because we have a great speaker that came back with us today. Shay is back, and she's with Berkshire Hathaway in Chicago, Illinois. She has built her $25 million a year business in just 4 years. When Shay's not working, she loves exploring in the city of Chicago with her toddler and teaching yoga. She tells me she's been a yoga teacher for 20 years, but I don't think that's possible since she would have had to start when she's about 10 years old, I think. So, and when she's not doing that, she's watching movies with her husband, Nobu, and trying new restaurants here in the city. So how you doing today, Shay?
I'm good. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm looking forward to sharing some tips with you guys, and hopefully you'll come away with, at least a few actionable takeaways to grow your business. As Paul said, I have been in real estate. I'm just finishing up my 4th year. I moved here to Chicago with my husband so that he could take a job with the National Association of Realtors. And when we moved here, I literally had been to Chicago, I think, once or twice for a couple of days. I didn't know a single person. I didn't know the city at all. And I got my real estate license and got started. So I have grown. I have a small team now. So I did $25 million personally last year, and then my team, I have a buyer's agent on my team, she did an additional $7 million. So we ended up about $32 million. So I have truly doubled my business every year. The first year that I was in business, I did one deal for $130,000. And then my second year, I did $7 million. My third year, I did a little under $15 million. And then last year with my team, $32 million, and me on my own, a little over $25 million. So, if I can do it in a brand new market where I had no real estate experience, I didn't know anyone other than my husband in a city that I didn't know at all, then you guys can do it as well. So I'm going to share some tips with you today on kind of how I got started and how I've been able to really organize myself to work smarter rather than harder, and balance that with having a 2-year-old kind of all at the same time. So after this webinar, I'm hoping that you'll have some ideas for some systems that you can use to automate your workflows so that you can be more efficient and spend either more time lead generation or maybe have a day off. As a lot of us in this business know, we don't get a lot of days off. And, I have found over the last year and a half since I had my son that time off is really precious. And so it has, caused me to try to even work smarter and maximize my time as much as possible. So I'm going to show you how I do that. I'm also going to show you how I increase my referral business from past clients. I do not buy any leads. I do not cold call. I do not work expireds. I do not farm. So all of my business comes from either people I pick up at open houses, and I'll talk to you about how I do that successfully. I typically close one deal from every open house, and my open houses only average about 5 to 10 people through. So, that's a really good conversion rate. The rest of my clients come from my sphere of influence that I have built here in Chicago, and I'll talk to you about kind of how I do that and which groups I find to be the most effective. And then I'm also going to talk to you about making strategic partnerships with non-realtors to increase your referral business. So we have a lot to get through, so I'm going to jump right in. If you do have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box on the right as I'm talking, and I'll stop and answer those as we go along. So, as we just talked about, we're going to talk about some lead generation tactics. We're going to talk about how you set yourself apart from other realtors. Here in the Chicago market, we have over 14,000 realtors. So it's challenging to get clients. Every time I go on a listing presentation, I'm usually being interviewed against 3 or 4 other realtors. Even, same thing on the buy side. A lot of the buyers here interview several realtors before they pick one to represent them on the buy side. So I've had to really work hard on my value proposition and what sets me apart from other realtors, so we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about how I treat my clients like gold. That's a big part of my value proposition and what I bring to the table beyond, opening the door and showing them properties and getting them from contract to close. We do a lot of kind of ancillary services and benefits that a lot of other realtors do not do, which goes along with kind of our concierge style service that I'll talk to you about. We're going to spend a chunk of time today talking about my drip campaigns. I have automated most of my contact with clients, but it still feels very personal to them, and it's very, what's the word that I'm looking for? Each email that they get comes at a point in the transaction when they need that information. So it's very personalized to them, even though it's automatic. And so we'll talk about how I do that, because that's a big part of how I'm able to handle 75 clients a year, just by myself. I've had a part-time assistant until recently. Now I have 2 full-time assistants. But, until a couple of months ago, it was just me and a buyer's agent and a 20-hour admin person helping both of us. So, we really were able to do a lot of this on our own without needing assistance because we automated so much of our communication. I'm going to briefly talk about our client appreciation events because those do bring in a lot of business, and then how we become the post-transaction resource with our extensive referral network of service providers, and then ways to connect with your clients. So the why, for me, I looked at real estate as I really needed to treat every client like gold because I didn't have very many of them when I started, and I needed to figure out a way in this city where there are so many realtors to differentiate myself from other people if I was going to grow my business. So that was kind of the thought process behind all of this. I come from a business background, and so I really look at real estate as a business, and as my clients as people that, I need to treat really well in order to get their referral business. And so I'll talk to you about how I do that. The biggest thing I have learned is that most realtors don't stay in touch with their clients once the transaction closes. And so I'm really strong in that area because most of my clients that I pick up, some of them are first-time home buyers, but a lot of them are not. They are people who worked with realtors in the past on, buying and selling, and that realtor never stayed in contact with them, and so really dropped the ball, and I was able to come in and swoop them up as a new client. So the first thing I think you need to do is figure out kind of what your reason is that you're in real estate, and then be able to translate that into a message that goes across to clients. So for me, I am kind of a crazy dog lady. Anybody who knows me knows that I love animal rescue groups, and I'm a big supporter of them both with my time and my money. And so I put that into my business. So on the bottom of my email signature, it says that, I donate a portion of each commission to local animal rescue groups. I put that in all of my marketing. I have a relationship with an animal rescue group who promotes me to their people, their volunteers that work with them, and so I get a lot of business from them. So figure out what your why is and really incorporate that into your business. I have won a ton of clients simply because of my email signature. People who are animal lovers are really able to connect with me on that when they get emails from me as a prospective buyer or seller. And a lot of times they'll write back and say, I'm so excited to work with you. I also have a rescue dog. Here's a picture of my dog, et cetera. And so it creates kind of this immediate trust with them that I think is really important. I'm also an Ivy League grad, so education is very important to me, and so I let my clients choose whether they want their donation to go to a local animal rescue group or their local school. And so since I'm a mom, education has become even more important to me now. And so that's another way that, if they don't have a pet, I'm able to connect with them on a parent level because most of my clients do have kids, and they love that I donate money back to their school. It also helps me get in with the other families in their school when I make donations and go to those school events to promote myself. So both of those have been really great ways for me to pick up clients, and they're very authentic to me. They're things that I strongly believe in. One of the questions that I get asked all the time is how to afford it. So I don't spend a lot of money on the things that I do. What I do is I pick one thing and I really use it. So my CRM I've had for 4 years. It's probably not the best CRM, but it works really well for me, and I stick with it. So, my big advice is stop going out there and looking for the perfect CRM, the perfect transaction management program. Pick one thing and use the heck out of it. Use every feature that it has. and, start spending your money on past clients. I send my clients a lot of gifts. I typically partner up with, whatever lender they used on that transaction, whatever attorney they used. We're in attorney closing state. I know a lot of you listening probably are not in attorney closing state, so that wouldn't apply to you, but you could partner up with the home inspector, the title company. I am always working to cut my costs by partnering with all sorts of different vendors that client used so that both of us can stay in front of them because, on average, they're going to sell or, buy a new home every 5 to 7 years, and so we want to make sure they're coming back to all of us again. And so those people also split the cost of a lot of marketing with me, a lot of events, things like that, so that they can be very cheap. I think the other thing you have to think about when you're doing events and, any sort of gift is really negotiate. That is part of our job. And so I don't pay full price for anything. When I rent out a movie theater, I negotiate so that I can, bring in my own food, to save money. If I'm doing a pie giveaway for Thanksgiving, I negotiate the cost of those pies way down. So, really negotiate as much as you can. And then if you have clients who are in business, try to involve them. So I have a client who owns a company that does marketing of your logo on pens and things like that. So I get all of my kind of promotional material from her. I have another person who's a painter, so I send him to my clients to do the painting. And so, what goes around comes around. If you can give a lot of business to your clients, they're going to remember that and pass a lot of business to you. So if you don't know what clients have different businesses, definitely reach out to them with a little survey and just find out and ask so you can start to use those. All right. So stop buying leads, start earning them. That is my motto. I do not buy leads. I don't spend any money on advertising, yet I've been able to grow my business vastly, and so we'll go through how I do that. So a couple of questions. Can you show us your signature file? I don't have any way to get to my email, but it basically just has my contact information, and at the bottom it says I donate a portion of each commission to local animal rescue groups and local schools, and that's pretty much all it says. It's very basic. Which CRM do you use? I'm going to jump into that in just a second. When you close on a home, do you start marketing to the other agent's buyer client that you bought your listing is another question. So it depends. We'll kind of get into that. I have to be very careful, as do all of us, about agency relationship. So I tread lightly in that category, but I do send them some specific things that I think would be helpful to the other side. So we'll talk about that in just a second. All right. So CRM. So I think having a really good CRM is kind of the number one thing you need to do, along with having a really great website. So we're going to jump into both of those categories. My CRM that I use is called Contactually. It's CONTACTUALLY, like contact, UALLY, Contactually. What I like about it is that I am not tech savvy in any way, shape, or form. I literally can barely answer my phone or use any of the features on it. So Contactually is something that if you're not super tech savvy, it's an easy CRM to use. And what I like about it is that nothing can fall through the cracks. And what I mean by that is when I email a prospective client for the first time or they email me, it is hooked into Contactually. So I use Gmail for my emails. So that is hooked into Contactually, so when somebody emails me or I email them, it automatically gets pushed into Contactually, and it kind of sits in what we call a bucket, and then I go in later and I put all of those people in that bucket into different categories. So I never have to think about manually taking a client and remembering to enter them into Contactually, because for me, that was where a lot of things were breaking down. I would email somebody for the first time, and then I would forget to later on go ahead and put them in my CRM, and so this does that step for me automatically. I think it's really important to segment your client in a lot of different ways. So in Contactually, I have buckets that correlate with where we are in the transaction. So every client gets put initially into a prospective buyer or prospective seller bucket. And then as we start to work together, once they commit to working with me, they get moved to either active buyer or active seller bucket. And that's important because it goes with my drip campaigns, which I'll talk to you about in a second. So once we go under contract, then they go into either buyer under contract or seller under contract bucket. And then once we close, they get moved into another bucket that is buyer closed or seller closed. And so I'll show you why that is in a second. I think then it's also important to categorize those people by your VIP clients, and what I mean by kind of A or VIP clients are those people who refer you to other people without you having to prompt them to, and so I hold special events for those A clients, and so I want to very easily in my CRM be able to pull out a list of all my A clients for invitations. Then we have our B clients. Those are the clients that will refer me out, but they need kind of nudges, to be, reminded that I'm in the business, that I want to work with their clients, things like that. Then I have those C clients. So, everybody has had a couple of clients, I'm sure, over the years that you just did not enjoy working with and don't really want to work with again. So I still keep those people in my CRM, but they go into the C bucket, and so they don't generally get invitations to things. I just don't have any interest in working with them again. Then we also tag them with a lot of likes and dislikes, and I'll show you that survey in just a second and why we do that. So this is a copy of what my CRM looks like. You can see these are my different categories, so prospective sellers, buyers closed, buyers currently looking, buyers under contract. I think it's really important to set your CRM up like this so that as you start to do automatic drip campaigns, you can have them targeted to people at the right step in the transaction. And then this is what my dashboard looks like on Contactually. So what I like about it is that I can set reminders for myself. So, I can set a reminder that for closed clients, closed buyers, I want to contact them every 30 days and check in with them. So if I set that up as a task, every 30 days it will pop up with one of these reminders, reminding me to reach out to them and call them or ask them to coffee or whatever it may be. Okay, so once you have your CRM, then you need to obviously generate leads so that you have people to put in your CRM. So these are the ways that have been most successful for me to generate leads. The first one was open houses, because again, I came here not knowing anybody. So I reached out to other successful agents in my office and asked them if I could work their open houses since I didn't have any listings at that time. And I got to know kind of who the busy agents were in my office who didn't have time to do their own open houses or didn't have interest, and I started regularly working open houses for them. What I found was the most successful through trial and error were targeting first-time home buyers in the beginning because they were the ones most likely not to have an agent representing them. And so I would figure out in your market, what is that price point for a first-time home buyer and what kind of property are they going to be looking for? In my Chicago market, first-time home buyers are typically looking for condos, and usually in the about $300,000 to $500,000 range is our first-time home buyers. Obviously, that's going to be very different in many of your markets. Our market is more expensive. So, target those first-time home buyers, try to work those open houses. And then something I learned from my husband that was really helpful was don't ask people to sign in at your open house. You want to build trust with them first and then ask them to sign out on their way out instead. That way, they've had a chance to get to know you, talk to you for a few minutes, kind of develop some rapport with you and like you. I found that they're much more willing to sign out and give me their actual contact information as opposed to asking them as soon as they walk in the door to sign in. People are very guarded. They don't want to give you their contact information. So that has worked a lot better for me. I use an app on my my iPad called Open Home Pro. So if you're not familiar with that, I would definitely suggest checking it out. It's not very expensive. And what I like about it is that it looks very professional. You put photos in there of the property that you're doing the open house for. You can customize questions. So I ask them, things like, are they pre-approved with a lender? So if not, I can hook them up with a lender. How soon are they looking to move? That gives me an understanding of whether they're really serious buyers or not. If they say they're not looking to move for 2 years, I'm going to put them on a different drip campaign than somebody who's looking to move in 2 months, and I'm going to treat them differently. So those are, Open Home Pro has been really helpful for me. It also sends them an email after they sign in with my contact information, and so that's nice because it has it in their inbox. So the next thing that I do is when I'm at the open house, I try to talk to each client who is there and just get an understanding from them of what they're looking for. Is this the kind of property they're looking for? Are they looking for other neighborhoods, et cetera? And then as soon as they leave in Open Home Pro, you can go in and type some notes in there. And so I'll say, this client's looking for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath with this budget in this area. And then what I do is the next day I go into the MLS and I just automatically set them up for an MLS search based on whatever it is that the property was that they were looking for. And I start sending those listings to them. And so then the way our MLS works is they can go in and mark whether they're interested in it, not interested, or maybe. So as soon as they start going in and marking properties as interested, at that point, I just assume that they're my client, and I start treating them like my client. And so I reach out to them and say, hey, I saw that you marked this property as interested in the MLS. I have availability tomorrow afternoon. Would you like to see it then? If not, what day and time works for you? And I found that when I just treated them that way and assumed they were my client, then usually they just responded back and said, yeah, that's great. Tomorrow works wonderfully for me. And I would set the appointment up and take them out. And so, that was a really great way for me to pick up clients. And so usually I was able to close I was able to have one closing from every open house. So right now I'm doing about 75 transactions a year. I haven't been doing as many open houses lately since I had my son, but that was definitely how I was able to kind of get to 75 transactions a year. The other thing I find from open houses is that if they haven't been pre-approved, then I would follow up and ask them if they'd like me to introduce them to a lender. Most first-time buyers do. They don't have a lender that they want to work with. And so I would hook them up with my lender, and my agreement with the lenders that I hooked them up with was that they needed to talk about how wonderful I was and really try to push that client to work with me. So that way, if the client was hesitant to talk to me or go out on showings with me but met with the lender, they would get an earful from the lender about how great I was, and that lender would try to push them back to me so I could recapture them again. So that worked really well. One other thing that I find just from a security standpoint with open houses, I'm a girl. I'm not, I feel like I'm kind of an easy target for creepy people at open houses. So there is something called Occly, Occly. This is basically like a kind of a personal safety device that you can, wear on your belt or whatever. You can also, it's an app on your phone. And so just from a personal safety standpoint, I felt a lot safer doing open houses with that app on my phone because I could, with one touch of a button, it would call police or it would call my husband if I was in trouble. So, if you are going to do open houses, definitely make sure you're safe about how you're doing them. And that's a fantastic program if you want to check into it. All right, so another thing that I did to generate leads was I started a networking group, so kind of like BNI, but my own thing focused on real estate. So I have a lender in my group, an appraiser, a real estate attorney. I have a jeweler, because I tried to think about, most people when they need to buy or sell real estate, it's because they've had some sort of big life change happen. They got engaged, they got divorced, they had a baby, whatever it is. And so I wanted to try to include those people in my networking group. So I have a jeweler because she's great at giving us referrals when people buy engagement rings. I have a doula and an OBGYN, same reason. When people find out that they're pregnant, oftentimes their housing needs change. We have a will and estate person. We have a divorce attorney. We have an accountant. We have a wealth management person, a life insurance person, and that group has been really helpful for me. I probably close about $5 million a year from that group. So we get together once a quarter for lunch. Everybody pitches in $250 to cover the cost of the lunch. And then we do one social event a year where we bring our families so everybody can meet the families. So, if you don't have something like that, I definitely recommend it. I started it. It was very easy. I just reached out to a lender I work with a lot, asked if he wanted to be involved. He said yes. We reached out to a couple of other people we know. We started to kind of brainstorm, and then we asked those members of the group to reach out to other people. So we've got about 25 people in our group, and that's probably been one of the most successful ways for me to get clients. I also do for a little while, I did postcards targeted to renters, so in kind of higher-end apartment buildings. I have not been doing that recently, but that worked really well for me to kind of farm that particular building. Somebody just asked a quick question. I don't meet weekly with the networking group. Heck no, I am too busy, and as a mom, I have no interest, so we only meet quarterly. I know a lot of people would say that's not enough, but it works really well for us, so we just meet quarterly. So, if you haven't done any sort of targeted mailings to renters, I would recommend that. We've also done targeted Facebook ads to renters who are likely to move within 6 months. And so, that's another really inexpensive way to target renters who are going to become buyers. Another lead generation tactic that has worked really well for me are Facebook groups. So in my city, there's a couple of Facebook groups targeted to moms, and so I've become a part of those, and oftentimes people will say, hey, we need more space, we're thinking of moving, what do people think about these neighborhoods, and then I can kind of chime in. And so I think last year I closed about $7 million just from being in those Facebook groups and starting to develop relationships with those other moms. So, look and see if there are Facebook groups in your neighborhood. If you're a parent, look for parent ones, look for neighborhood-specific ones. So I'm involved in a couple of neighborhood-specific ones. Those have been really successful programs for me. All right. So once you have those clients, you need to put them in your CRM, and then you need to start to automate your communication to them, or at least I have found that works helpful for me. So what I started to do was I first started with a website. So pick your CRM, and then I think you need a really good website. I don't like to use my brokerage website that they give to me because I want to be able to quit my brokerage on a moment's notice and go to a different brokerage. And I want to be able to take my CRM with me, my website, my transaction management program, and not have those tied into my brokerage. So my website, if you guys want to go to it, it's just shayhata.com, shayhata.com. And it's through Playster, which is an NAR member benefit. So you set it up through the NAR member benefit website. I pay $5 a month for my website. I think it's pretty and looks nice. What I like about it, most importantly, though, is that it has a blog feature on it, and I think that's really important. You'll notice it also does have an MLS IDX feed. I don't particularly find that is important at all because I set my clients up through the MLS, but if you don't have a good MLS in your market, that may be important for you. What was most important for me was having that really good blog feature because I write a ton of blog posts. And then those are that's the content that I then send out to my clients. So if you go to my website, if you click on the buyer button at the top and you scroll down, you'll see it says steps to buy a home, and there's about 31 steps listed. So I listed out everything from finding a realtor through closing, okay? And each step is very detailed and specific to my market, and it explains exactly what happens in that step. So for the inspection step, it explains what's going to happen at the inspection. It reminds the client to bring a tape measure with them. They're welcome to invite family or friends. It has my list of 3 recommended inspectors in that blog post. So what happens is in my CRM, I have an email set up that matches all of those blog posts, which I'll show to you in just a second. And so when we get to the point where, a couple days later, we're going to do the inspection, we send an email out to that client saying, hey, next step in the process is that we're going to do the inspection. Here's a link to my blog post explaining the inspection and what happens. And so with these blog posts, we're able to send them out to each client a day or two before that step in the process, so it explains what happens, and it gives them very clear information so they feel like they're hearing from me constantly. I'm holding their hand throughout that transaction, and they're getting a lot of good information, but I'm not actually having to repeat any of that information, so it's all automated through my CRM. So you can also check out, we have under the seller tab on my website, we have steps to sell a home. Same thing, it's like steps 1 through 30. So those are the main blog posts that go out to clients along with some other things. So my recommendation is if you find yourself repeating information to a client, that should become a blog post then that you send out as an automatic email. So whenever I was starting to get asked a lot of times from clients, like, what's a foreclosure? So I basically sat down, wrote 2 or 3 paragraphs on what a foreclosure is, and now whenever I have a client who says to me, hey, can you explain to me what a foreclosure is? I say to them, yes, I have a great blog post on that. Let me send it to you, and I shoot off an email to them, and then that way they have it in writing, and I've told them everything that they need to know without having to spend 15 minutes repeating that information to them. Same thing with like short sales, how to win multiple offers. Think of anything that you tell a client more than once, that should be a blog post, and it becomes an email that you send to them instead. So for prospective clients, okay, so to back up for just a second, so what I did was I took all those blog posts and I grouped them in categories to match my buckets in my CRM. So I have a whole bunch of blog posts that are targeted to prospective buyers and prospective sellers. So some of those are for buyers, 10 things not to mess up your loan. We have, I link to, I give them information about how to figure out if a neighborhood is safe. So, I tell them that they can go look at the Trulia website for each property and look at the crime heat maps. We have the Chicago Tribune in our market has crime maps, so I give them all those resources in that email. I also researched through our state. Our state has free money for home buyers who are under certain income criteria. So I researched that, put it into a blog post. I send that out to all the clients. My most popular one is, are estimates accurate? Because I don't know about you, but I was getting asked that constantly, and it was annoying. So I did a blog post on why they are not accurate, and I send that out to every prospective buyer. I talk about protecting their privacy online, so they need to make sure that their Facebook settings are set to private so that during negotiations nobody can see what they do for a living and use that against us in the negotiations. So anytime I have a client who hasn't committed to working with me yet, I reach out to them once a week with all of these different blog posts, and those are set up for once a week for the first month, and then after the first month they get a blog post from me every month for 2 years. So most people start looking for properties 18 months before they're actually ready to buy, according to NAR. And so I wanted to make sure that these blog posts that were going to go out to them went out to them for at least 2 years. So I have a lot of people I meet at open houses who are maybe not ready to buy yet. They start to get these blog posts, and then they'll call me 9 months later when they're ready to buy and say, hey, I've been reading your blog posts. They've been super helpful and informative, so I want to go ahead and start to work with you at that point. Once they go, they start looking with me, then they get moved to that bucket in my CRM called Buyers Looking. And so then they get steps 1 through 7 on my blog post, which are things like, picking out an attorney so that we're ready when the contract needs to go in. One of them is about time for showings, so that goes out to them before we go out for our first day of showings, and just talks to them about making sure they remove their, wear shoes that can easily be taken on and off. Feel free to bring snacks, things like that. Then once they go under contract, they get moved to that under contract bucket in my CRM, and then they start getting steps 8 through 31 on my website. So those are things like the inspection. Those talk about thinking about putting security measures into their house, like getting their front door locks rekeyed. That talks to them about needing to set up homeowners insurance with my recommended insurance providers. And then there are some additional ones that are not on the website, such as we do what's called Meal for the Move. So a week before closing, we send them an email automatically through our CRM that allows them to pick two pizzas and 2 things of soda, and then my assistant calls and places that order, and the day that they move into the property, they designate the time, and then the pizza and the soda shows up, so it's there on moving day for them. We also let them pick their closing gift, so I'll show you a copy of that email in just a second. And then we have a new one that's not on the blog yet that we will be putting up soon that talks to clients about why it's really important for them to put their home in a trust. And so we encourage them to do that while they're under contract, set up a trust and put the house in it. And so that is an automatic email that now goes into them. So there's a question down here. How long did it take you to develop the full blog post to use for drip campaigns? So really, it didn't take me that long. It took me maybe 40 or 50 hours. So I sat down over the Christmas break, between Christmas and New Year's, my first year in the business, and just wrote down every question I could possibly think of that a buyer or a seller would ask me. And then I wrote out all my steps to buy and steps to sell, and that was the basis for my blog posts for a long time. And now I do them very sporadically. Maybe once a month somebody will ask me something that I don't have a blog post for, but I think a client's going to ask me again, and so then I'll write a blog post for it. So it takes a lot of time in the beginning to set it up, but those 40 hours that I spent setting it up, many years ago, now it saves me hundreds and hundreds of hours at a time. It gets me a lot of clients, because a lot of clients reach out to me and say, hey, so-and-so referred me to you. I heard you have these awesome blog posts that you send out that really keep me informed about what's going on in the process, and so I want to work with you. So they've been a great referral tool for me. All right, so you can see these are the steps under buyers. If you go to my website, you'll see these are a copy of the steps, and then I have one for sellers as well. I find these are particularly helpful, too, for clients who are really needy, especially first-time home buyers who want a lot of hand-holding. they then feel like they're hearing from you every day or every other day, and so they're not, going to be reaching out to you and calling you as much, wondering what's going on, because you're proactively giving that information again. Somebody just asked, well, we have access to your blog posts. Yeah, they're all online. If you just go to my website, I would say 95% of them are there on the website, so you can take a look through them. You're welcome to copy my ideas. Just please don't copy the blog post word for word. I've had a lot of people do that, and I've had to send out cease and desist letters. So, feel free to use my ideas, but make the words your own. Your market is going to be different than my market, so you should really tailor them to how your market works. All right. So this is a copy of one of my email templates that's in my CRM contextually. So you can see it says hi, and then automatically inserts the person's name in here. I always make my emails so that they're only one paragraph with 4 or 5 sentences, and then I link to my blog post on my website so that they can learn more. That way, if they open it up in a smartphone, it's easy for them to quickly read. If it's of interest to them, they can click through. I really wanted my website to be a place where they come frequently, and I wanted all of my marketing to push back to it. So for me, my website is like the center of a wheel, and then all my marketing goes out from it, and everything pushes back to my website so that they're constantly coming to my website for information. So that's why instead of just copying the blog post into here, I link back to it. It also helps with my SEO. So because I have so many people visiting my website regularly, my website is like the #1 website in Chicago pretty much for real estate. So if you search for like home inspectors in Chicago, my website comes up before any home inspector websites usually, because I have so much custom content that is local on my website, and I have so many people visiting it regularly. So this is the one that goes out the day before we go out for our first showings. So it, again, links to the website and talks to them about, wearing shoes that are easy to slip on and off, etc. And then we have one that goes out about them picking their closing gift as well, so I'll show that to you in just a second. So the other thing I decided to do was, in addition to automating my communication, was make sure that I really treat them like gold during the transaction. So for me, I decided that in order to do that, I really needed to get to know them first. So we created these All About You forms that are on my website as well. So if you go to my website and look under Buyers and scroll all the way down, you're going to see the Ready to Buy survey and then Ready to Rent survey. And on the sell side, if you scroll all the way down, it says Ready to Sell survey or Ready to Buy and Sell survey. And so those have been very helpful for me, because you can scroll through those and see what we ask, but this is what it looks like on the website. So we ask questions like, their basic contact information. We ask on the Ready to Buy, what are they looking for? How many bedrooms? How many baths? What's their budget? Have they been pre-approved? All those kinds of questions. Do they want hardwood floors, carpet, etc.? We get all the nitty-gritty details. And then we ask them for the fun stuff. So we ask them for their favorite type of, wine or alcohol, what their favorite kind of coffee or tea is, favorite snacks, sports teams, music that they like to listen to, etc. And then we really try to personalize the buying and selling process for them. So the first time I pick them up for showings, I will stop at Starbucks and get their favorite beverage according to the survey, and I'll have whatever kind of music they like to listen to playing in my car, along with their favorite kind of snacks, so that we really try to give them personalized kind of VIP experiences when they work with us. The nice thing about those surveys as well is that they save a lot of time. So for me, I don't have to spend an hour on the phone with them finding out that information anymore. As soon as a new client reaches out to me, I, respond back to them and say, I'm super excited to talk with you and work with you. Here's a quick survey. It'll take about 5 minutes to fill it out. Once you fill that out, we'll set up a time to chat over the phone, and then I can just ask them any additional questions I might have for them. I think this also sets us apart from other realtors. It makes us look very professional and on our game. And so we found it's very impressive for people. We also like to give them busy work. Because education is very important to me, we kind of roll that in by sending them books. So when a new client starts to work with us, if they're a first-time home buyer, we mail them the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book with a little note about how we're super excited to work with them and help them build wealth through home ownership. If they are an investor, we send them the Millionaire Real Estate Investor book. And then one of the questions on our survey is, where is your dream vacation to go? So we also then later in the process send them a book to the destination for their dream vacation. So if they said it was Italy, we'll send them an Italy book, and we'll say, look, I can't remember what the note says, but it's something along the lines of, we're here to not only, help you find the home of your dreams, but make sure you are being smart with your money and in good financial shape so that you can fulfill the rest of your dreams, such as taking your dream vacation. Here's something to get you started. And so we send them that little book. For the book, we pair with some of our referral partners on that. So if they're using one of our referred lenders, we'll pair with the lender to save money on sending those out. We talked about I show up with Starbucks and snacks. So, we always are trying to think of ways we can go above and beyond. And so one of those ways is when they go under contract, we immediately ask them if they're thinking about making any changes to the property. Do they want to change the flooring, get it painted, et cetera? And so then we call our people and we set up estimates during the inspection for our, painters, flooring people, handyman, tile guys, whatever it is, to come out and give them estimates, so that they don't have to worry about trying to get that done later. So we coordinate that for them during the inspection. We'll take care of overseeing it. If they need additional estimates after that, we will take care of getting those for them as well, so they don't have to take off any work. And then after the property closes, if they're going to have work done, we will coordinate all of that work for them. We'll put a lockbox on the property for them. We'll let them borrow one of ours so that the workers can get in and out, so that really we try to take as much work off their plate for them as we can, because we find when we do things like that and we're really memorable before and during the transaction, it makes it easy for us to be memorable after the transaction, and it gets us a lot of referral business. Some other things we do to go above and beyond is once they go under a contract, we drop off moving boxes to them. So I think I have a photo of that. Yep. So this is the idea I stole from a friend of ours in Denver, and so she does these boxes that have their brokerage stamp on the outside, and they say start packing, you're moving. And so we partnered with some of our lenders again on that, and so they actually take care of dropping those off for us, and we just split the cost for them. And then this is a book, this House Smart Books, we send out to them as part of their closing gift. So we do a lot of gifts, as you'll see. Another thing that we recently started doing just a couple weeks ago is once attorney review closes and we've negotiated all the inspection items successfully on both the buy and the sell side, we send them 2 Tiffany champagne flutes. Cost me $50 from Tiffany with free shipping, so it's not very expensive. And, we tell them to go out and celebrate and have a little drink. We don't send them any alcohol. We just send them the Tiffany glasses. But, what person doesn't love getting a blue Tiffany box in the mail? So, I think it seems much more expensive than it really is at the $50. We also let them pick their closing gift. So we have an email. I think I have a copy of that. Yep, right here, that goes out to them. So instead of giving them a gift that they didn't want, we decided to send them this email. They get their choice of 4 gifts. So I will send my personal handyman out to their home for 4 hours to do handyman work after they moved in. And then I pay for that. It costs me $120 is what I negotiated with my handyman. If they want additional work by that handyman, they pay the handyman directly after the 4 hours at $40 an hour. Otherwise, I will send my cleaning woman out to clean their house before they move in or after they move in. The third choice is we'll cater a housewarming party for them, so we take care of the food, they take care of the alcohol. And the fourth choice is we will send a photographer, a professional photographer, out to their house to do a family portrait shoot, in front of and inside their house. So they get to pick which one they want to do, and then they let us know. Again, that's an email that goes out automatically from our CRM. So, that kind of talks about our CRM. Then we use a transaction management program called Insightly, which is insightly.com. Paul probably would be lovely and put a link up to it if he's been doing for some of the other things. It's not very expensive. I think it's $30 a month. And it's also a CRM, but I find it's not very good as a CRM because it doesn't have a drip campaign feature, which Contactually does, so that I can send those emails out automatically. But I find it's really great for transaction management because you can set up activity sets in it, which are basically checklists. So we have an activity set for buyers currently working with us and sellers currently working with us. And then we have a different activity set once they go under contract that takes all the tasks that we need to do from them from start to close so that nothing falls through the cracks. And the nice thing about it is that those tasks can get assigned to either me, one of the assistants, so that we know that everything is getting done for them. So here's some examples of how that looks. So we have all of our clients in here. like Adrian and Dave Harbarger, they're sellers we're currently working with. They're not under contract yet because it would say seller under contract, so it just says seller, and then it says that it's assigned to me, or Iris is my buyer's agent, so you can see Alexia has been assigned to Iris. And then this is a new seller that I just agreed to start working with yesterday, and so you can see once we have that agreement with them, we assign this activity set to them, and all of these activities automatically populate into their file in Insightly. So now when my assistant came in this morning, she could see when she went to her task list that all of these tasks had been assigned to her, so she knew we had a new seller. And so she can go in now and she knows today to send them the listing agreement, send them disclosures without me ever having to say anything to her, so it just becomes very automatic. And then the nice thing about this is you can also go in and add particular tasks. So if I need to do something special for them that I don't do for most of my sellers, I can just make it a task in here and assign it to myself or somebody else so that we make sure it gets done. So this is a copy of what the tasks look like once a client goes under contract. So you would make these very specific to your market, but this has really helped us manage these 75 transactions a year without anything falling through the cracks. Somebody asked, does Insightly pre-populate or do you have to load tasks into it? So you just load the tasks into it once. It does not pre-populate the first time. So we set up that activity set the first time, and then once a client goes like under contract, we just go to their file and we hit buyer under contract, and then it automatically loads all those tasks in that we put in that one time, so we don't have to do it again. For new construction sales, what are ideas or suggestions for clients that you and your team have used for saying thank you to both builders and buyers? So we have not represented any builders, so I can't talk about that. But for our buyers, a lot of times they do still want the handyman to come over and put up shelves for them or artwork, or change out a light fixture. So the handyman option is good for them. They've also picked, having the housewarming party or the photo shoot. So we do those same gifts with our buyers. I just can't talk on the builder side. All right. So then after the transaction closes, we have additional gifts we send to them. So we send them a return address stamp that has been personalized for their new property. We send that to them about 2 weeks after they go under contract, along with some just moved postcards, and I think I have a copy of those. Yep, so these are what they look like. So when we're on the buy side, we reach out to the listing agent on the sell side and just explain we're going to be sending out just moved postcards. Would they be willing to give us a high resolution copy of the photo for the exterior of the condo building or house? Usually they say yes. If they do, then we'll put together a postcard like this. That is the first option. If they say no, then we do a generic postcard on the bottom right that just says I've moved, and these are really cheap. We get these from I think it's Vistaprint, and I think we pay like $5 or something like that for those. So then we also send them a Christmas ornament for any who celebrate Christmas from a company called Mimpix.com. It's MPIX.com. It costs us, I believe, $10, and it's a really cute metal ornament that has a picture. That same picture goes on it of the front of their house, and then it says home for the holidays and whatever the year is. So as we go through our transactions during the year, we have a folder. My assistant just puts those pictures in the folder throughout the year so that at the end of the year we can just upload it to Mimpix and order all of those. Then we have an automated drip campaign that goes out to those closed buyers and sellers for 5 years. So for 5 years, they hear from me monthly on different blog posts, and I'll go over those with you in just a second. And then we do a ton of client events, which I'll share in just a moment as well. So we want to really make sure we are staying in contact with those clients at least monthly so that we can get that referral business from them. So for our blog posts for closed clients, we do things like we ask them to claim their home on Zillow and make sure all the information is accurate. We send them maintenance reminders. We send them information about appealing their property taxes when that time comes each year. Then we'll do seasonal things, like if it's really cold out, I have an automatic email in Contactually that I can send to them with tips on making sure their pipes don't freeze. So we'll send that out to them. We also researched free money from the city and the state for things like if they get a high efficiency furnace or AC unit, they can get money back from the gas company. So we have information like that we'll send out to them every couple of months about money-saving, things that they can do if they're remodeling. We send them a copy of their Alta statement in January. So, anything you can think of that would be helpful for them. Our thing is that it has to be local content that applies to them. It has to save them time or money. Those are our two criteria for sending these out. And we have an incredibly high open rate. I think our open rate is 89% on these emails. So almost all of our clients are opening them and reading them. And we hear from them regularly that they love the emails because they do save them time or money, or they tell them something about home maintenance that they didn't realize they should be doing, like getting their dryer vents cleaned out, etc. So you can see these are some of the emails that we send out to our closed buyers. These are some of the titles if you need some ideas for ones to send out to your clients. Those were the postcards we talked about. I think it's really important to include kids and pets in the transaction and make sure they don't get left out as well, so the whole family feels like they're part of the transaction. So what we do is when we work with families that have kids, we have a contract that we send to the kids. If they're old enough, that we ask them to sign, and the agreement is that, if they go on showings without complaint, and, if they're on the buy side, or if they're on the sell side, if they keep their room clean and help clean up for showings, then we will give them a $25 gift card to the Disney store when the property closes. We also give them books about moving. So there's a great Bernstein Bears book about moving that we'll give to the parents if their kids are having a hard time with the idea of moving. This Great Moving Adventure DVD is a really great one, and I think it was either free or super cheap, so you can Google that and find that. For showings, when the kids are going to come along, we have activity packs that we have in my car that have, model magic in them, have little snacks, have some little toys that they can play with, things like that. If they have pets, we'll find out from them, do they need us to arrange for a dog walker or daycare, on the day of closing, or on the day of moving. So we've taken care of both of those things before so that we can just make sure they're really well taken care of. So, we kind of briefly talked about our concierge-style service. We gather the estimates for them. We put the lockbox on. We do the pizza. For our high-end clients over $1 million, we will fill their fridge on closing day with some basics, depending on what they eat, eggs, milk, cereal, juice, things like that, just so that they have some food for a day or two. And then we'll, drop off things like toilet paper, paper towels, trash bags, some, cleaning wipes, things like that. Again, we only do that for clients at a higher price point. The other thing we do is we have a subscription to updater.com, which is UPDATER. I bet Paul will be lovely and put that link up for that us as well. So Updater is a great service. I think we pay $100 for it for the year. And basically they go on there and it will automatically transfer like their credit cards and their magazine subscriptions and even their utilities and things to the new address without them having to call every company themselves and do it, so that saves them a lot of time. We do some mailings to our clients as well to stay in front of them so that it's not just the blog posts that they're getting. So we do, every other month we do a mailing, and they're always kind of fun, tongue-in-cheek mailings. On the front is the funny part, and then the back is a list of festivals in the area and activities that they may want to go to. And then we include a little gift. So in January, we put in a lottery ticket, like a $1 scratch-off lottery ticket. In the spring, we partner with a cupcake bakery, and each coupon is valid for them to go get a cupcake for free. In the summer, for our high-end clients, we'll put in some movie ticket vouchers. And then in the fall, we do a $5 Starbucks gift card. So the gifts that are in those don't go to necessarily all of our clients anymore because now we have a ton, but they'll go to more of our VIP clients. Somebody just asked, how big of an area in Chicago do you cover? Like maybe 5 miles, but here that can be with traffic, 30, 45 minutes. So it's not a huge area. All right, so here's a copy of the postcard. So you can see on the front, we always do them for funny, weird holidays. So like we send one of ours out on Groundhog's Day because like who's doing mailings on Groundhog's Day? We do another one for April Fool's Day, and that's always a funny one on the front. So we try to send them out on kind of odd holidays that nobody else would be sending stuff out. And then on the back is, a copy of the festivals. So then this was an idea I got from a realtor in Ohio, Amy Broghammer. So she sends out this kind of recap at the end of the year, which we've started doing as well. So this talks about, kind of her year in real estate. How many phone calls did she do? How many, times did she go to Starbucks throughout the year she was doing showings? Just kind of funny stats combined with some real life stats as well that we send out to people. So somebody just asked, second, the budget question. Those are a lot of gifts. Totally, we do tons of gifts. And this person says, in an area where the average home sale is about $250,000, that adds up. Just home carpet cleaning is about $300. Yes, but I don't pay full price for any of this stuff because I always partner with other people on it. So like I rented out a movie theater, which I'll talk about in a second, and did a private movie screening of Star Wars in December. And we had 4 sponsors for that event. I think I had 100 clients there, and I think the whole thing cost me $200 by the time it was said and done because we always partner with people on it. So yes, if you're paying for all this yourself, it's going to add up. That's why you partner with other people to keep the costs low. So who is creating your postcards? Somebody asked. That is a great question. I do not remember. So my assistant works with somebody to have that done. I think it's an online service, and I can't remember the name of it. I'll have to ask her and get back to you on that one. All right. So client appreciation events. So we talked about we rent a movie theater. I forgot to update this slide. We used to do it in the summer, and now we do it in the winter because we find nobody comes in the summertime. So we try to do it around a big blockbuster movie. So we did Star Wars in December. That went really well. We always let people bring their families, and then usually about 5 or 6 days beforehand, if I have extra seats available for any of my events, I reach out to my VIPs who are attending and tell them that they can bring, some friends with them if they want. And that way I have a chance to potentially meet some new clients. So we do a summer family barbecue. We do a Thanksgiving pie pickup at my office. So everybody gets a choice of 3 different pies. They get 1 pie and they swing by, and we've got some apple cider and things like that. Pumpkin patch event, I haven't done that, but my husband did that. So his whole office would put that together on a brokerage level, and they would turn their parking lot into a pumpkin patch, and all the families would be able to come and pick pumpkins, which I loved. I thought that was a great idea. And then his office would do the same thing with Christmas trees and wreaths. So they would partner with the Boys and Girls Clubs and get Christmas trees and wreaths, and everybody would come and donate Toys for Tots. And then the office paid the Boys and Girls Club to tie the trees onto the tops of the cars, and the agents would pay for the trees and wreaths for their clients. It was super cheap. I think my husband paid like $15 for a Christmas tree for each client and like $8 for a wreath, something like that, and the clients could choose whether they wanted a wreath or a Christmas tree. Valentine's Day blowout party, that is one I do. So I rent out a hair salon the weekend before Valentine's Day, and I invite all my female clients. It cost me $35, but again, I split that with other people. So usually we have about 4 people, so it costs me, $9 or something. And all the girls get to come. They get their hair blown out for Valentine's, and we have champagne and cookies that they get to partake in. We do a driving range outing in the summertime, so that one's a little more kind of guy and girl focused, since the Valentine's one is really girl focused. I have tickets to, the Cubs and different theater events in town, so if I can't go, I will send an email out to my database letting clients know that they're welcome to those tickets, first come, first serve. One big thing I've learned from my events is hire a professional photographer. So one of my clients is a photographer. So she agreed to come and basically do the photos at our events for free. And in exchange, she gets a ton of business from my families. So that's great because then we can post those pictures on our Facebook page and tag our clients. So not only do they get awesome pictures, but all of their friends get to see that they got to go to these cool events. One we just did recently was we rented an indoor kid play space because this winter has been so cold and miserable, and so we invited all of our families to come with their kids and play for an hour and a half in this really cool indoor kids play space. So that was really fun. Somebody just asked, when do you have a private life? That's a great question. That is why I now have 2 full-time assistants. So, as my business has gotten busier, I needed extra help. And with us automating most of our communication, we don't spend a lot of time doing that, so it frees us up to do this kind of stuff. So these are pictures of our Valentine's Day blowout. That was my husband posing funny with our sign that's out front. Okay, last couple of things really quickly before we go in a minute is be an online resource for offline needs. So I want to make sure that not only am I reaching out to my clients after the transaction closes a lot, but they are reaching out to me. And the way I do that is I am their go-to for everything they could possibly need. So I have an extensive list now that I've put together of really good painters and tile people and contractors and carpenters, doulas, OBGYNs, accountants, literally anything you could think of. I spent the last 4 years finding the best but cheapest of those people. And so I am the first person usually that my clients call if they need a referral for anything now. I also got to know people at restaurants. So when my clients need reservations for hard-to-get restaurants in town, they call me, and oftentimes I'm able to get those reservations for them. So, really do a lot of networking and make sure you become the referral, the resource for your clients. So I put a lot of those on my website. So if you go to the resource section on my website, that's constantly updated with our best painters, carpenters, etc. And then I check in with them. So like during really heavy rains, if I have clients with basements that I'm worried about they might flood, I check in with them that next morning to make sure their basement was dry. And if not, I call, my people to go over and, help them take care of it. So, make sure that you are really there to help them once that transaction closes. Also make sure they know that if they are moving out of state or they have friends moving out of state, that you can hook them up with a good realtor so you can get those referral fees. So this is a picture of kind of my resource page that you can see on my website. These are some of the blog posts you guys had asked me about. Most of them are on the website you can take a look at. Lastly, I also connect with my clients on Facebook. So once a client commits to working with us, I friend them on Facebook, and then they go into, we have a client list on Facebook that is just our clients, and so I can go into that and check that page once a week. And then if I see somebody got engaged or had a baby or is pregnant or whatever it is, I take a snapshot of that on my phone, I send it to my assistant, and she'll send them a gift so that we can always be top of mind, especially when they're having big life changes. I'm not big on Twitter or Instagram. I don't even remember my passwords, so I don't use those, but if you do, go for it. I just use Facebook. We do use Real Satisfied for our reviews, so after a transaction closes, we send out a link to Real Satisfied, which I think we pay $100 for a year, and it asks them, it's a survey that they fill out on all aspects of the transaction. What did they like? What were they happy with, not happy with? And then asks them for a testimonial. And what's cool about it is when they give you a testimonial, it makes it into a pretty graphic. And then with a touch of a button, it will automatically upload it to Facebook. It also links it through to Zillow and Realtor.com, so I don't have to ask them to go to all of these different places to leave me reviews. They just leave it there, and it goes everywhere else I need it to go to. All right, lastly, we do send out a CMA on the anniversary that they bought their home. We do that every single year so that they can see that hopefully their home is increasing in value. Okay, last couple of things really quickly because we're going over loop and tie. So when clients do give me referrals, we send them a loop and tie, which basically is an online website that has different categories of gifts. So we always do the $25 gift. So, whenever they do anything nice for us, if they give us the name of a new painter who's really great or a client, or, they recommend their OBGYN to us and that person's really great, we always are sending out thank you gifts. And so we do the $25 one. What's cool about it is they can go on and they get to pick from a whole collection of gifts. So usually there's like 20 gifts in each category of the $25. And so, they can pick a sock subscription, or they can pick, a wine glass or whatever it is that they want that fits their life so it's personal to them. This is a copy of what the testimonial looks like from Real Satisfied. And so then we put that on our website and we tag the client in it to say thank you, and that way all their friends saw that they used us. Somebody in the pre-survey had asked about growing a team, so just quickly, I think if you're going to grow a team, your first person should be an admin so that you can focus on lead generating activities. And then after that, I would say a transaction coordinator, either an hourly rate or a flat fee. And then after that, I would hire a buyer's agent. That was how I worked. It's done really well for us. And I don't have a bigger team than that, so I can't coach you on having a bigger team than that. All right, that is basically it. So my takeaways are: make sure you're memorable before and during the transaction, convert your B clients to A clients, make sure you stay in contact with your clients both during the transaction and afterwards so that they will send referrals to you, and then instead of buying leads, start earning leads. So that is it. Any other questions that I can answer for you guys? Okay, so somebody said, what do you think is fair for a transaction coordinator per transaction? The ones that I spoke with, usually, I want to say it was around $300 is what they were charging, somewhere between $275 and $325, $350 for the transaction. I have somebody hourly now, so I just pay them $15 an hour, and they do it for me that way. Somebody else asked, what percentage of your commission goes back into your marketing? I try to keep all of my expenses for the business, including, marketing, my assistants, et cetera, at about 40% or below. So, I'm really lean in terms of how I run my business. My tech tools, like my Contactually, I think is $30 a month. I think Insightly is about $30 a month. My Playster website is $5 a month, so I don't really spend more than I think $100 on like my tech type of tools. So it's pretty cheap. Somebody asked, how many hours a week do you work and do you have regular days off? I try to take off every Saturday. So my agreement with my buyer's agent is that she does all, so first of all, I try to handle mostly listings now. So I do about 75% listings, about 25% buyers now, and she handles the rest of our buyers. So my agreement with her is that any showings that have to be done on Saturdays, that's my day off. She handles all Saturday showings. She gets Sunday off, so I handle all Sunday showings. And then I try to take off I go to the gym every day, Monday through Friday, so that's a couple hours off, and, I just kind of take time off the rest of the time as I need it. All right. Any other questions? I'm not seeing these. Does Vistaprint work for monthly postcards? Have you used send-out cards? I've not used send-out cards. I've only used Vistaprint, or I think we also use, maybe it was called overnight prints, something like that. All right, I think I got all of the questions. Let me just scroll through. Copies of Paul, can you answer that one?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say for the copies of the presentation, you can get a copy of the slides right now in the bottom over to the far left, what says webinar files, and it says slides. You click on that, you click on download file, there's your copy of the slides. Also, it's in your education history and course materials folder. And when I send out the email, there'll be instructions there how to access it as well. But I do think you got all the questions. Just a lot of people typing, but I think it's just looks like thing. And I just want to thank you, Shay, for being on here and giving so much great information. And it was great working with you again. And I wanted to let everybody know that Shay will be back with us on August 6th at 1 p.m. for her next webinar with our RC, How I Close 75 Transactions a Year Without Paying for Leads. Registration is open for that webinar now. And yeah, it looks like, Dick, I'm going to let you know about for credit here in a second. And yeah, I think you got them all. So thanks again, Shay. And
thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And I hope everybody joins my August one. For that one, we're going to be talking more in depth about like sellers and listing presentations, kind of initial consultations with buyers. So we're going to be going into a lot more detail on those types of things.
Oh, great, great. Oh, there's one last question for you. Who does your website again? Do you do that all yourself, or do you have somebody?
Yeah, that's Playster.com. So they'll do a template for you. They have a bunch of options to choose from templates. I would encourage you to do one of their mobile responsive templates so that if somebody pulls it up on their phone, it's easy for them to use. And that's $5 a month for their basic template. And then from there, you do add the content. So, we went through and added all the neighborhood pages and the blog posts, and, we bought stock photos of Chicago that we put on there. So you would add all of that stuff yourself. If you can use Microsoft Word, you can use their website. It's very easy to set up. That probably took me about 50 or 60 hours to set up. Again, I did it once, and then I didn't really ever have to think about it again after that. I have not used Playster CRM. I started using Playster, right when I started about 4.5 years ago, so they didn't have a CRM at that point. I started using Contactually then, and I've just stuck with it because it works for me. So their CRM could be great. I just don't know anything about it. Where do you buy your stock photos? Oh, my Lord, I don't remember anymore because we bought them so long. I want to say it was istock.com, like the letter I, S-T-O-C-K.com, I think, but I don't remember for sure. do they interface? Placer does not interface with Contactually, but I don't really need it to. I don't get a ton of people who contact me through my website. My email address is on there, so most people just send me an individual email instead, and so then I hook it in that way. So I do have to run. I have to get to a photography session for a listing, but thank you so much, everybody, for listening in. I appreciate it, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Shay.
Bye, Paul.
And bye. And I wanted to let everybody know to take the time to click on the link. It's on the slide right now at the very top. It says, please take a moment. Let us know your thoughts about today's webinar. That's a live link. You can click on that. I'll also send that out to you in an email as soon as I'm done here. And I hope everybody can, and for get the credit, the last question on the evaluation will say, did you watch this for credit? You just put in your name, your first and last name, to let us know you watched this webinar for credit. That's all you need to do. And it's on the evaluation, the very final question. And that evaluation, the link for that it'll be a live link for a few weeks. So if you didn't do it today and you're watching this recording, you can still click on that link. And I hope that everybody could join us on this Thursday, April 26th at 1 p.m. Central for our next RC webinar, Leverage Time and Money to Grow and Scale Your Real Estate Business with Amy Rogehammer. And after attending this webinar, Amy's going to show you how to work less evenings and weekends and spend more time with your family and friends, identify some key part-time or per-project team members to leverage your time, and also learn when and why to use new technology in your business. Registration is open for that right now, and that's this Thursday. And even if you can't attend, you can sign up for the webinar, and then you'll get the recording. And on August 6th is Shay's How Do I Close 75 Transactions a Year Without Paying for Leads. And I just want to thank everybody for being here.